Let me start with that Peach Bowl in Atlanta because it was an absolute classic. First of all, didn't you feel after the first game and how unbelievable the first game was? I just thought to myself, like, there's no way that this is going to live up to it. There's no way that we're about to get something equal to what we saw in the first game. And then it's equal and then some. That was a phenomenal football game. And that's where I want to start, is that at some point, and I understand if you're a diehard of Georgia or you're a diehard Buckeye, I totally understand the bitterness if you were a losing fan and the elation, right, and everything. And I understand being mad at certain aspects of the game. But if we want to just pull ourselves out for a moment, okay, and just go 30,000 foot view, that was a phenomenal football game. And college football in general is the big winner because there were some great performances, both individually and from the teams. Each coaching staff performed unbelievably well in big moments and in critical moments. And I just wanted to acknowledge that before I get into kind of the nitty gritty of this game, is that was a phenomenal football game. And I'm absolutely here for it. And I think college football was the big winner. All right. So where do we start with the Peach Bowl? There are so many places to start. You can start at the end. You can start overarching, all these things. Let me just start with this. Georgia rose to the occasion when their best was absolutely needed. That team has been the best team in college football for the last 18 months, and their back was squarely against the wall. You're down double digits inside of 10 minutes in the fourth quarter. And they rose to the occasion, okay? And we'll talk through, some of the things that happened, in particular in that fourth quarter, or even late in the third quarter. But there has to be an acknowledgement to the championship medal that the Georgia Bulldogs have, because this is a team that clearly has that championship medal. They had to make massive plays, and a number of them, in order to come back and complete that comeback and win the game, and they were able to do it. So kudos to them. And I just want to acknowledge a few of the things that they were able to do. First and foremost, the fourth quarter execution on offense was stellar. It was fantastic. Now, were there a couple of little mistakes? Yes. The lateral, did Bennett play his best game? No. But they made critical plays. Fourth down conversions. I mean, Brock Bowers keeping himself up and not hitting the out of bounds, the chalk there, and getting the line to gain, phenomenal stuff. The route AD runs in the corner, phenomenal. They were able to call plays and get to an attacking mode and make the plays necessary. That's a championship team. Just, plain and simple. Yes, they've got great players. And I think too often in college football, we just sit there and like, well, they're just better. You got to go prove it at some point. And those two teams were fairly equal, all game long. And that was an absolute slugfest and a heavyweight fight. And that team made a lot of plays late in the game. Bennett was outstanding when his best was needed. Was he outstanding the whole night? No. Was his line probably better than the way that he played? Yes. Did his coach absolutely eviscerate him in the postgame interview? Yes. And by the way, I was chuckling to myself because I'm like, man, that's what playing for Kirby Smart is all about. I mean, the standard that they have for themselves is so high. You win a semifinal game. He threw for, almost 200 yards in that fourth quarter, it felt like. He was almost perfect. You look at what he's done against top 15 teams, in his last 6 games against top 15 teams, this guy has been outstanding. 71%, 16 touchdowns, I think only 1 pick. Like, he's been outstanding. And Kirby Smart was like, our quarterback's got to play better. We just ask him to do one thing, just play within the system. He eviscerated him, and he made some critical plays in that fourth quarter. So when his best was needed, regardless of how the game had panned out up until that point, he played really well. And then the coaching staff. The coaching staff they were fantastic. And this is going to get lost a little bit, but the fact of the matter is that they made a few adjustments as that game was going along that really paid huge dividends. Couple that I want to point out to you, and this is the Georgia coaching staff. Okay, number one would be, as soon as Marvin Harrison Jr. was knocked out of the game, and I'll have more thoughts on that in a little bit. But as soon as he was knocked out of the game, their defensive game plan changed. And it was so smart, because what they had done is that they were starting to double team and use a lot of resources against Marvin Harrison after he was getting loose in the first half. That's why he had somewhat of a quiet third quarter. But because of that, other things were open. Did you notice Emeka Egbuka and Julian Fleming and Xavier Johnson having space to operate in one-on-ones in favorable matchups? That was in large part due to the fact that Georgia they were committing a lot of resources to Marvin Harrison, and they needed to, because he was doing what Jamison Williams was doing early in the national championship game a year ago. He was doing what Williams and Mechie did in the SEC championship game a year ago. This is exactly what I talked about all week leading up to this game, is that you have to have guys that win one-on-one matchups on the outside in order to beat Georgia, and Ohio State was doing that with Marvin Harrison. That's a huge reason why they had a double-digit lead when they did. But when he's knocked out of the game, they were able to immediately change their philosophy, and they started playing a lot safer coverage, getting eyes in the backfield. Their rush, they were, I would say, mixing the right type of pressures and blitzes at the right time. And because of that, they got to Stroud a couple of times. They were able to cover up guys. They didn't let Ohio State get deep, and it just became harder for Ohio State to move the football. So that was great. And then the second coach's thing, I guess you could say, or action during the game was the timeout. Kirby Smart's timeout on the fake punt was brilliant. I mean, it wins the game for him, or it saves. You know what? I shouldn't say wins the game, because you got to go make plays after that. It saves the game for them. If Ohio State converts that fourth down, that fake punt, they probably win. It's easily another 2 minutes off the clock if they use it right. They got more momentum. You get the defense even more tired. That timeout was incredible. And I don't think it gets even enough love, even with people saying like, hey, that might be the best timeout of all time. Well, you have to also kind of go inside the mind of a coach. Kirby Smart is down double digits. So timeouts are gold, right? Like, there is nothing he wants to do. Well, how should I put this? I'm putting that in a poor way. There is no way he wants to burn a timeout on a special teams play. Like, last thing he wants to do in the world. They're down 11. There's 8:58 left. Down 11. By the way, it's on the Ohio State 34-yard line, right? So there's no way he wants to burn that timeout. So you have to go inside, and I've been on headsets on the sideline before. Someone with huge stones had to be screaming from the box, like, timeout. We have to call a timeout. You have to call a timeout. 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 You can tell Kirby kind of like hears it the first time, and he kind of like signals for it. And then he's like, wait, I don't want to use a timeout. You can see the whole mental gymnastics going on in his head. And then he starts kind of moving down to the linesman, and he's like, nah, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And somebody on that headset screamed, call a timeout now. And he does it. And I'm talking about, like, was it late? Maybe. Are they going to give it to him? Yes. You know, oh my gosh. Remember, they're going to give it to him whether he yells it or signals for it. So as soon as he's yelling for a timeout, he's going to get the timeout. And I'm telling you, that took an immense amount of courage from him, because he doesn't want to do that. They're down 11. There's 8:58 left. He thinks he's going to need all of those on his offense, for his offense, in order to extend drives, maybe call a timeout before a crucial third down or fourth down on his offense. They are gold. He doesn't want to use that, and he did. And good thing he did, because it saved the game for Georgia. So that was a wild sequence. I was beyond impressed that they were able to get that timeout. And so Kirby Smart, the coaching staff, did a great job. They played great in the fourth quarter. Bennett was outstanding when they needed it most. And then the coaches did a great job. Okay, now let's move to the end of the third quarter, okay? Because we can't talk about every single thing in this game. But when we talk about the end of the third quarter, that game completely changed. And to be quite fair, Georgia had a glimmer of hope only once Marvin Harrison was knocked out of the game. There's not a doubt in my mind. If he stays in the game, I think that the fourth quarter is different. Now, that has nothing to do with the actual targeting. I'm just saying, like, the fact that he was knocked out of the game changed everything. Everything. Ohio State probably wins if he stays on the field. Now, let's go to the targeting call. You know exactly how I feel about targeting. I've made it very known. Targeting is broken. I hate it. It's one of the worst things in college football. One of the reasons that I hate it is not because of the penalty and the ejection and that it's that it's subjective. And you cannot fairly officiate a subjective rule like that. Okay? And the other penalties just aren't quite as egregious as that one. But the targeting foul, the fact that we can't define it right now and that everybody gets in a room and we watch a clip and then like 50% say targeting, 50% say it's not targeting, like that's a problem. We are we are far along enough in this targeting kind of lifespan that we should have a much more clear definition. And we don't. Okay, so that being said, the flag comes out. Once the flag comes out and they go to replay, it's not like a normal replay, okay? So you have to understand that they are going to go into replay during targeting, and they're trying to confirm all aspects of targeting in order to keep it on. So what they're trying to do is take the targeting off. Now, with that being said, do I think that was targeting? Well, let's just put it this way. I do not believe that Marvin Harrison had a whiplash concussion, nor do I believe his head hit the ground. So how in the world is he knocked out or stunned for a moment unless there's forcible contact to his head? That doesn't make any sense to me. Do I believe that the foul should have stayed on? Yes. If it stays on in replay, does that game change? Absolutely. They have to settle for a field goal. If they don't, do they knock it in? I don't know, but let's call it a 4-point swing there, and that changes everything. That changes everything about that game. So is that the biggest moment of the game? Yes, it is. Did the officials get it right? Probably not. And I'm somebody that hates targeting. I hate targeting. But if you're going to have it in the rule book, and if you're going to throw the flag, I didn't see anything in that replay that I was like, you know what? Like, that definitely wasn't targeting. There was not forcible. You would have to tell me, like, there was not forcible contact to his head. Clearly was forcible contact to his head. So that's a blown replay. And I'll get to replay in a moment. So, yes, it was targeting. They faced a much different defense after that because of the adjustments. I already went over that. And then because they were facing a different style of defense and the adjustments for Georgia were really sound, they couldn't punch it in anymore, right? They didn't have the ability to create the matchups and create the space to punch it in. So what they have to do is settle for field goals. They settle for field goal on that drive. Then they settle for a field goal on another possession in the fourth quarter. And ultimately, that last possession, what were they doing? Settling for a field goal. In large part because they didn't have the matchups to move the ball. They were trying, and Stroud was fighting like hell, but they didn't have the matchups to move the ball. So that was the biggest moment in the game. Did the officials get it right? Probably not. Probably not.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoy that clip, make sure you click subscribe somewhere down here. From game highlights to exclusive interviews and rankings, we've got everything you need as a college football fan right here, College Football on Fox.